Hello and welcome to the reading from Agastya, the Siddha Principles from the Sacred Discourses of Agastya Valipado. Today we'll continue the topic of energy fields as explained by Sage Agastya. Last week, Appa had talked about the different layers of the soul or the human body, the gross body, the etheric body, astral body, and the causal body. He had explained about how one gets connected to higher knowledge. Now, we're going to continue that same chapter today. And I'll first read and then I'll explain. A rishi, for example, is one who can easily get connected to the knowledge coming out of Parabrahman, which we call supreme consciousness. All Vedas are visualized in this manner. That is why they're regarded as the words of God. Here, Appa Agastya is very clearly telling us why and how the Vedas were created. So he says, a rishi or somebody at that caliber who's attained a high level of, consciousness easily gets connected to the supreme consciousness, which has all the knowledge existing in this created world. As we know, knowledge is prevalent. It's everywhere. It's like, and as I have explained before, it's like energy of that is there, like a frequency of the radio. And if you connect to that particular frequency, you're able to hear the radio the same way. If you connect to a particular level of consciousness, you're able to get the knowledge connected with that level of consciousness. So the highest level of consciousness, where it's pure truth, pure knowledge, is the supreme consciousness. And that is where Sage Agastya says rishis are able to connect and bring that knowledge and express it in a human language so that we who are born as humans are able to understand it. And these Vedas, they have a timeline of 1500 BCE to 500 BC, which means that's a very long time back. But they have continued to remain extant, which means they are alive. They continue to hold the same information and are very relevant even today. And that is because this kind of knowledge is pure knowledge and it comes from the most supreme level. It is supreme knowledge. So with the Vedas, it is a little harder for us to understand because it is constant and very symbolic meanings, very profound information. But then we also have the next level of Upanishads and then the Puranas, which were also given to us so that we can understand these things, carry all this important knowledge through the ages without losing it. Except in the Puranas, they come as symbolical meanings. They have stories which are easily transmitted from generation to generation, which are very interesting so that they never die. But every story, every symbol, everything connected to the Puranas has a deeply esoteric meaning. So this way, knowledge which has been received from the Supreme Consciousness has been received and given to humanity in different time periods. In the same way, also other religious texts have been given. Many of the things that are problems that are existing today in terms of religious unrest is because people are misinterpreting what has been given. When knowledge is conveyed, when this kind of supreme knowledge is conveyed, it is conveyed in such a way that there is lots and lots of meaning hidden in each sentence, each word. However, when it comes down and people read it and they take it very literally, then they forget the real information behind it, the real knowledge behind it. So Appa is now talking about how the Vedas came into being and how people like rishis or greatly elevated souls can connect to higher energy fields and bring in that supreme knowledge and give it to the world. Now let us continue. He says, when a person dies, the elements in him are subject to degradation. The gross body and the etheric body get disintegrated in the earth or fire. The astral body and the causal body, along with the soul, become separated from them. This unit, which is the, the astral body and the causal body, is called the spirit. Now, Appa is talking about what happens to this energy body, which is the human body, with the causal, etheric, astral, and astral level, that dies or life is withdrawn. And we talked about it. Why a dead body cannot be revived, because of the vital energy has been withdrawn. If people think life is just eating and oxygen and air and water and a body can live. No, but cosmic energy is needed. That life-giving force is needed for a body to exist. And when that is withdrawn, what happens? Appa is clearly telling us. He says the gross body, which is what we can see with the eyes, the etheric body, which is like next level, it's almost like a clothing, but it's not. I mean, I'm talking in the energy field level, and then those two get disintegrated. How? Either they get buried and they decompose in the earth, or they're burnt or cremated in many of the religious practices. That's one of the reasons in Hinduism we cremate a body, because that body has no other function anymore. The soul has withdrawn, the spirit has withdrawn. We understand that life continues through the spirit, the causal body and the mind that has withdrawn from the physical body. So this is not just like a discarded shell. So we just cremate it. And it's also, in a very scientific way, it's very hygienic, because a lot of disease-causing bacteria are all burnt in the fire when we cremate the body. Now, what do we call spirit? When we talk about ghosts and spirits, Appa says the causal body and the astral body, when they come out, that is called the spirit of that particular identity or the ego that has manifested in this world as you or me. Then he continues, gods are like this without a body. Because they do not have a body, it is referred as Akaya. Kaya is body, Akaya is without body. This speaks to the Advaitha philosophy. Gods have the power to manifest at will. When a person sees God in a manifest form, it is known as Dvaitha. Now, Appa is again explaining Dvaitha and Advaita, and he's also telling us something very important. Many of us think that gods appear the way they look, in our pictures, in our sculptures, but gods are highly purified energy bodies. They can assume form. That is the difference. They can assume form that we as human have visualized them in and appear in front of people. So that is the difference between a human and a god. God is able to assume the form of a human form or whatever form that we have given it. And is it possible that anybody can visualize God in a different way and God will appear like that? No. That is usually highly evolved souls like rishis, when they visualize God in a certain way, so that normal people like us, who are not able to understand the concept of energy or understand the divine without a form, then that form becomes something that we can visualize and worship. And that is very important. And Hinduism has been criticized a lot about that, because they say, oh, you have crores of gods. But the main thing here is, what people do not understand is, in Hinduism, we understand the true idea of consciousness, supreme consciousness, or the creative force, the absolute. It's everywhere. That is why we have stories of Prahalada saying, God is here in this pillar, and Narasimha Avatara comes out. That is a very higher level of understanding. We know that God is present in everything. And that is why we revere cows. That is why we revere everything as aspects of God, as brothers and sisters like us. Whether it's a stone, nothing in this universe can exist without the power of God. It's impossible. It is God, the power of God that has come out as Shakti, the creative principle, and created all this. And the moment that goes, then there's nothing left. So everything is sustained, created and sustained and destroyed by the power of God alone. And that is why we understand the concept that every manifested thing contains that beautiful energy. Even though many of us ourselves do not understand that this human body, this spirit, this soul that we have is also part of God. So this is how we see God as form, that is Dvaitha, and God without form, and both are beautiful principles. There's nothing wrong with Dvaitha, because in Dvaitha, you have the ability to express love, enjoy, express, and experience. In Advaita, you go to a more sublime level and understand yourself and everything around you as energy, formless. Both are beautiful, and it is okay to understand and accept both, or prefer one over the other. It is all okay. There's nothing wrong in any of these things. Let us continue. Appa says, this spirit body has a mind, and so the soul is not free yet. Therefore, it has a desire to reincarnate. But for this, it needs a gross body. The spirit chooses the right parents in whom the wish of the spirit is fulfilled. Now, what happens once the body disintegrates after a person dies? The mind and the causal body, the astral body, they separate, right? The causal body, the astral body separate. The mind is still attached to them. And now, because as long as the mind is there, there is duality. Maya or Mother Shakti uses the mind as the greatest tool to continue creation, to continue to keep us in creation and play in creation. It's not a punishment. It is we who wanted to be created, we who wanted to experience and express. So we have come here, but forgetting our original intent, forgetting what we are, forgetting that we are part of the divine, we become engrossed in this drama of life and undergo what we call as suffering. And that is caused by the mind. So as long as the mind is attached to the astral and causal body, the individual soul or the Atman is not free. So what happens? Now the Atman has to find a liberation, but it cannot just get liberated like that. So it needs to come back, reincarnate to get rid of all its karma, because both good and bad karma hold the spirit or the ego, manifested ego in this world. So that is why we have repeated birth, and that is why Appa says in Vadipadu, rebirth is not something that God says you should have, that is Parabrahman says you should have. It's something that you want. Each one of us want rebirth so that we can come back and find that final liberation, that final realization of who we are. And when we arrive at that stage, then there is no more birth. That is when we become a Jivan Mukta, liberated while living, and then there is no more continuation. Once that body is gone, we do not come back. We become one with the absolute. So that is what Appa is talking about. So what happens when a person dies? Now the astral body, causal body, and the mind is in the astral level. And now the body is saying, okay, the mind is saying, I need to have a body to come back. So depending on the karma that we have, we choose the kind of parents and the kind of life where this karma can germinate and we can get rid of it. So no, we cannot blame our parents because we are born in a certain family. We cannot blame the circumstances that we are in, because we have chosen it. We have chosen to come here to undergo the things that we are undergoing, whether it is pain or pleasure, because we have to get rid of the karma that we have accumulated. So what is the lesson here? The lesson is, when we are undergoing suffering, instead of saying, Ayo, what is happening to me? Let us look at why it is happening. Remember that what we have done in the past lives has set in motion what is happening to you today. So face that suffering with that knowledge, Do not create any more suffering by reacting in a negative way when something bad happens to you. Try to be the divine being you are. Constantly keep in mind that Appa or any divine being and ask them to help you deal with these things well so that you don't add to your karma and don't have to come back over and over again. So today, this this day, we can start a new life where we will not add more karma by doing anything that we consciously know is wrong, by reacting in a negative way to something that's happening to us, not blaming somebody else for something that's happening to us, which is very normal. We all do that. Oh, this person did that, that person did that. That's because we are still identifying with the mind, and the mind is telling us this is wrong, that is wrong, they did this, they did this. But we must understand that all these people who are in our life today have been drawn there for us because we have to undergo this karma. And all these are attachments. Whether we hate somebody or love somebody, these are all attachments that karmically connect us. So, how do we get rid of that? Come to a level where you consider everybody as souls, where you do not have hate and love everybody equally. And it's a very tall order, but we should start now. We can start now. We can start beginning to understand this now because it is through our own good that we understand this and get rid of this body once for all, or this cycle of birth and rebirth. Now let's continue with what Appa is saying here. So once a person detaches himself from both good and bad karma, he does not wish to be reborn. With his dedication and Guru's help, he can return to the Paramatman or Supreme Being. So he is not born again. So Appa is saying, how can one then, once you realize this is what causes rebirth, then you start seeking a Guru, because a Guru and God can help you get rid of all this and return to the absolute or Paramatman. And that is why all of us on the spiritual path are very blessed, because we have realized. Otherwise, we would still be, involved in samsara, in worldly life, and talking only about being born and having children and buying a house and buying a car and immersed in it. We won't even know that all these other things are there, which is why we are suffering, or what is happening and why rebirth, all these important questions. That is why Appa says Jnana Yoga is the highest, because with it, you understand what causes suffering, what is karma, and what is rebirth, what is birth, and we begin to make the changes that will give us liberation. Now, there was a question on this, and the question was, how do we break free from the cycle of birth and death? So the person who was asking this question asked Appa Agastya, how do we do this? How do we break free? So Appa says, the path of the Atman is the path of Dharma. That's just this one particular sentence is enough. If we can understand this, this is the basic foundation of any spiritual path. Doesn't matter what religion, what group, what God, what guru, it doesn't matter. Dharma is the path of the Atman. The soul has to understand what dharma is, righteousness. Follow that in order to purify itself. Because without righteousness, without right actions and speech and behavior, we are simply going to continue to accumulate more karma. So dharma then becomes the foundation of a spiritual path. So how do you know a person is on a spiritual path? Because of the way they behave, because of the way they talk, because of the way they act, because they understand this whole concept. Then Appa says, but the mind does not allow the person to walk on this path. It wants to enjoy the pleasures of the senses. Hence, it is born again and again, and the Atman is trapped. That is what is happening. The mind, which is the greatest tool of Maya, will tell you, oh, it's okay. It's okay to indulge in this pleasure. It's okay to do that. It's okay to do this wrong. So that is why we get caught in the endless cycle of birth and death. So what can we do? Listen to your consciousness, because that conscience is coming from the Atman. The soul is telling you, One little small voice is telling you, don't do that. It's not correct. Listen to that voice. That is why whoever is on the path of Jnana Yoga, start listening to yourself. Start listening to your feelings, because the feelings are purer than the mind. The mind has these five sense telephones, eyes, ears, nose, all these things, and it uses all these stimuli to keep us in this created world. Try to start looking at feelings and emotions, because they're more powerful and they can connect more easily to higher divine beings and higher consciousness. Now, Appa says, take for example, a person has deceived someone. The Atman tells him it is not correct and that he must change. But his mind and body do not allow him to change. So he is born again and again. So that is why many people are caught in the cycle of birth and death, because they're constantly doing this, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So that is why it becomes very important to start looking at what you're looking at, what kind of movies you're watching, what kind of books you're reading, what kind of conversations you're having with people. Watch your behavior, become aware of that. It's not going to be an immediate change. It's not going to happen. But slowly, day by day, with perseverance, we can change ourselves. That is why in spiritual circles, satsang is very important. Satsang is not about going to a place, sitting with a group of people, doing bhajans, praying to God and leaving. No. Satsang is company of the good, whether it is in social media, whether it is in your telephone calls, whether it is in your the daily interactions, whether it is in reading a book, whether it is in watching a movie. Satsang. Allow only good things to come to you. Watch yourself. If you're watching a movie that is violent, which has some bad things in it, some explicit things in it, your mind will draw you to that. Avoid it. Avoid it until you're able to actually have the power to, keep away from those things. And that is going to be a long time. Paramahamsa Yogananda says, the area or the energy in a place is stronger than you. So if you know that a bar is a place where a lot of people who hang out or are there and they have different kind of worldly thoughts, that's the kind of energy that's going to be in a bar. Don't go. Even if a good friend says, no, you don't have to drink, just come sit with me, you can have your water, I'll sit and drink my wine or whatever. Don't go, because that energy is going to affect you. So that is why it again becomes, everywhere you're talking about energy. That's why it becomes important to go to places which have good energy, good vibes. That is how we talked about last week. You see a person, okay, you feel immediately attracted to them because there is good energy coming. Your aura is already interacting. If you find a person, and your heart cringes, try to avoid being around that person. It's not wrong, because you need to change. And the only way you can change is making these very physical decisions in life. And it's okay to do that. If after repeated attempts, you have to remain with somebody who is very vicious or anything, it's because of your karma, because there is a strong karmic link. Then accept it and then change yourself so you do not react. It's not going to be easy, but every time keep trying. Keep trying. That's all we can do, and that's all we are required to do to change each day. Then Appa says, the right way then is to see how we are born again and again. It depends on how you enjoy yourself, the way you enjoy yourself, how many times you want to experience something. Even this has norms. Experience and enjoy only legitimate things. Once you have the anubhava or the experience of a particular thing, say it is enough. Do not keep wanting to do it again and again. So again, Appa's talking, he's being very practical. He's saying, it's okay to experience something that gives you pleasure. Okay, you're eating something nice, eat it. But don't want to have it more and more. Just because it is nice, don't eat 10 chapatis. It's only going to cause you stomach ache because the curry was good. Or do not do something, when it says do only legitimate things. What does he mean when he says legitimate? Is it connected to the law? No, no, it's not connected to the law or the rule. It's connected to righteousness. It's connected to our different ashramas that we talk about. Vridashrama, Grihastha. So that is why in Hinduism we have these 4 beautiful stages of life. What you experience and enjoy as a child, you do not want to experience and enjoy as a youth or adult. It's not necessary. And that is where Appa says, limit yourself. When you're in your Vridashrama, don't try to do what a youth does. You've already passed that stage. So why do you want to hold on to those desires which is going to make you come back and again? How many people who are in the geriatric phase are able to let go of all these pleasures that we call, whether it is, physical intimacy or the pleasure of eating? The eating is the last thing that's going to go. All these things, how can we get rid of that? Because at least when we are, in youth, okay, there is the excuse, youth have to, grow up, get married. Then when we are in adulthood, we are part of a family, so we have to undergo certain things along with the family. That's okay. But once you reach a geriatric stage, why continue all this? Why not understand why we are born, what we have to do, and where it's okay to say this is enough? Because until we are able to say, I have experienced this anubhava has already happened, I don't need it anymore, we will keep continuing to come back over and over again. So this is how Appa is talking to us, explaining to us in very simple way what the Vedas have said in the most simple way in Vadipadu. It's the path he has shown us as modern people who are not able to have the capacity to understand the great texts of the Vedas. And let's continue. After some time, ask God to take you back. When a person reaches this stage, either by conscious will or by suffering, he starts becoming purer and purer and goes back to the Paramatman after casting away the causal body. So until we cast away the causal body, which is the thing which remains and continues to come back in again and again, we will not reach the Paramatman. So Appa says, so if you've reached a stage where you realize this, when you're able to start getting rid of things, then start asking God to take you back. Many of us on the spiritual path are here because of that, because we have suffered and we know, or because of either knowledge and we're consciously wanting to go back, or because of suffering, we want to go back. And both are okay because both bring us to the same stage which we need, which is realization that this human birth, all this suffering that we're going through is not necessary. That is what Buddha realized. He saw all the suffering, then he started questioning why the suffering. And then he found out these are the things that cause suffering. And then he gave the Eightfold Path. That's a beautiful way of doing it too. And so in each religion, we have these divine beings who have come, who are helping us understand, reminding us of our divine selves, reminding us, don't get engrossed in the play of Maya. Do not do that. Come back. Understand that is why walking on the spiritual path, you're not reaching any place. You are peeling off layers and layers of ignorance to realize what is already within you, which is the divinity. Because as Atmans, we are all part of that great Paramatman. Now, in short, Appa says, follow the path of Dharma and detachment. 2 important things. Follow righteousness and detachment. Don't be attached to things, because when you're attached to things, either by hate or love, you're going to come back for that. Because every desire you have will be fulfilled. That is the law of the cosmos. So think, do you really want this? Or do you want to just let go? Because you will get what you desire, but when you get what you desire, you're also going to get all the suffering that comes with it. There are a lot of people who want to live longer. Why? What are we going to get from living longer? Because we are going to accumulate more karma unless we know what we are doing. So without knowing, don't ask for things that you do not have any idea about. Start having detachment slowly, little by little. And then Appa says, do not store wealth, love, or wisdom. Give them freely, expand them, give knowledge to others. And he has always said the greatest knowledge or the greatest gift of charity is not food, not clothing, not money. It's knowledge, because knowledge has the power to free a person from this cycle of birth and death. And that is the most important thing we have learned. So he says, do not store all these things. What are you going to do? You see a lot of people buying all these things, keeping it in their house, and they die. Then what happens? The people who come after them, if they are like that, then they'll want to hoard it. But others may think, oh, this is useless, and they'll throw it away. What was the use of keeping all those things? So look around you. What is it that you need? Simplify your life. Because the more things you have, the more your time you're going to spend cleaning them, keeping them safe from others, and letting your mind get involved in those earthly things. Simplify your life so that you can spend more time for your own self and to find God, to find liberation. That is what Appa's whole discourse of Vadipadu is. Walk on the path of Dharma, understand why you're coming back, and then make those changes today. So we are going to stop with that today, and we will continue next week.